What's going on, man?
What's good, man? How are you?
Oh, another day. Another day.
I shouldn't be surprised. I was going, I was going to hit you up about this one before I even got a chance to. you,
Oh yeah.
you
Yeah.
were on it, and I'm the same
Well,
way. So it's kind of funny.
I'm in this Facebook group. Somebody I had no clue it existed. And it's someone in one of them Facebook groups that I'm in. It's just black people talking about TV shows and stuff.
Oh,
And somebody dropped in there like, hey, have y'all watched this yet? And I was like, oh, when I tell you no clue it existed, never saw a promo,
yeah.
nothing. So I just hurry up and hopped on it.
Same thing kind of happened to me. I saw a trailer for it a couple of days ago out of nowhere, and then it said it's coming out this month, and I'm like, how am I seeing this a few days before it comes out? I wasn't blasted on YouTube with it. I wasn't blasted on Amazon with it. I wasn't blasted on nothing with it. So when it said it, I was almost thinking like they was gonna show it and they're gonna be talking about like sometime next year or something. So when it was like with a couple of days, I'm like, that's incredible. And then I got an opportunity to see a early screening of it down at Oakland at the Grand Lake Theater the day before. They showed the first 4 episodes, I believe, on the big screen with an audience. They had some of the actors that was there. They showed up. Boots wasn't there, but his dad was there. So I met his dad and I met his sister, I believe. And it was a lot of folks out there. He paid for people's concessions, so we got popcorn and a drink. And then at the end, they was giving out free T-shirts, and they also gave out these veggie burgers. It's like this veggie burger truck thing that they have out in Oakland. They came out there and fed everybody who was in the theater afterwards. So it was like a nice little, cool little setup. They had like a DJ, the guy DJ for the Warriors. He's in there spinning in the movie theater before it started. It was pretty dope. It was kind of it felt a little grassroots. It was like a cool, well put together little thing, like, and I was kind of surprised, and I'm glad I got a chance to go through, because even though I know I was gonna be able to watch it the very next day, it was nice to see it on the big screen, like I said, and then to watch the last 3 episodes at home. It's like, oh, that's right on. But okay, then we could just go ahead and,
Yeah.
get on it. So I'll
Yeah.
do the countdown. You ready to go?
As you know, I stay ready.
This is true. 5, 4, 3, 2.
The world is not ready yet.
We beat to rap what key beat to lock, but we beat to rap what.
You never been out there?
Just hit the sideshow with us.
Well, I'm a Virgo, and Virgos love adventure.
We showing up with a giant.
Let's go.
Welcome to Bing Bang Burger. What can I bop you with today?
I want to take my time and get to know her.
You just need to look her in the eyes and say, I want you.
I want you.
With your eyes, don't say that out loud.
People are going to try to use you and put you on display. You're the Messiah. You said you'd come from a desolate place.
I'm not from a desolate place. I'm from Oakland.
Yes, a desolate place. And when they can't use you no more, they're going to try to get rid of you.
So when y'all kicking it?
Tonight.
Tonight? The people love me.
You are a 13-foot tall black man. They fear you. The whole thing has to be torn down.
Damn.
Spotlight.
You're illegally trespassing.
How about this, mother?
I don't sound like none of y'all.
I ain't got no giant.
All right, I'm Jay, back in for another one, and tonight I have with me.
You have Drew, and you got me not just tonight, morning, afternoon, anytime you're listening to this. I'm with you. I'm right here, and I'm excited because we're about to talk about something that is going to be all over the place. And if you listen to when the two of us get together, we're all over the place. This project was all over the place, so I'm excited, man. Thank you, as usual, for having me back. Could have had anybody, but you chose me, so
That's right.
I'm very, very proud to be here.
Well, I appreciate you, and we dig in. So who better to do it with? All right.
Yeah.
So I know nothing comes out of nowhere, and it takes years for projects to come, get developed and get turned down, then canceled and brought back in somebody else's hand. So ain't no telling how long things be baking in the oven before it comes out. But for this one, a few days before it actually came out, to my surprise, I saw a trailer and saw this interesting, weird trailer with this 13-foot black dude on the back of a convertible at a sideshow in Oakland. And I'm thinking, like, first it took me a double take to be like, am I seeing this right? Is this real? And then when I saw, from the mind of Boots Riley, and I was like, okay, that makes sense, seeing that, the Oakland, and then the weirdness and familiar yet foreign at the same time kind of situation. But like I said, what tripped me out the most was the fact that no sooner than I saw that trailer, this show was out. And so it's one of those things you didn't even have to wait. So as soon as you found out, before I got a chance to get upset and sad that I had to wait a year, this bad boy came out a few days later. So
yeah, it's weird. I feel like his movie was like that too. Where
kind of was.
It was out and I saw and I think at that point I didn't see it until like the movie was actually out and I started seeing promotion for it. But I think Lakeith had already made a name for himself.
Yeah.
And seeing like the bandage and everything, like that's what caught my attention. And I'm like, well, maybe it was already out, like billboards or something, but I just didn't see it till the film had already been out. So like, I just think independent filmmakers doing their thing in Hollywood don't get the same publicity or don't get the publicity that they deserve at all. And this should have been, Amazon could have did a better job.
Yeah, especially with the buzz and the name that he made for himself from the first one, from Sorry to Bother You. Especially after that, you would have thought that the first one, okay, he's a rapper from the Bay Area. He's not really mainstream. He's kind of underground, but a lot of people know of him. And so, okay, we don't know what this guy gonna be doing. It's like if Snoop Dogg all of a sudden wanted to direct a movie, and you'll be like, okay. But even Snoop Dogg, because of who he is, he'll get a lot of promotion. So it's kind of interesting that movie was strong as it was, considering the lack of buzz it had, that initial movie. So it was almost kind of like, okay, well, we'll see this cute little movie this local guy made, this rapper on his spare time decided to make a little movie. Let's see what he got to do. Yeah. And it was just like, wait, what? And it was the vision was just so clear. And even though you were in on this journey, you didn't know how deep the rabbit hole was going to go. So you sit up there watching familiar. Oh, that's kind of awkward. That's kind of funny. You keep watching around and don't recognize the light poles anymore. And hey, I don't recognize this house. the house is looking a little different. Wait a minute. What up to the street signs? What up to the roads? And you're in this whole other neighborhood, and you slowly but surely drove down that familiar street, and you looked up and you were in the middle of nowhere, and you don't know how you got there. But it was just like, one of those journey things that just kind of snuck up on you, but you were happy that you kind of went through it.
Yeah, I think I came into watching this show knowing that I was going to be thoroughly entertained.
Okay.
But I also knew that I wasn't going to be happy with the ending. In my mind, I was thinking to myself, you know what? If this is anything, because I loved his first film, but the ending was like, oh, was that necessary to be that? And it was.
Yeah.
But I was like, So I knew that I was like, yo, this is going to either be a cliffhanger, this is going to be crazy, or I'm going to feel some kind of way about certain parts of it, because you know how you can be weird?
Yeah.
And then there's weird on the next level. So it's sort of like how I can say that maybe I'm blurred, but maybe I'm not full nerd. You know what I'm saying? And I think that was my experience with this. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and there was some parts where I was like, man, this is good. But I could see where, for example, my wife would drop out partially through it. Okay. I text one of my homeboys and was like, yo, this is real good. He's like, yeah, man, it's kind of odd. He made through the first 3 episodes and was like, yeah, it's kind of odd. So it's not for everybody, but it is good.
Yeah, that's true. I got lucky enough to see an early screening. It was the day before. I got a chance to see it in Oakland at the Grand Lake Theater. And so they showed the first few episodes, I believe the first 4 of the episodes. They had some of the cast there. Boots wasn't there, but his father wasn't, his family. Some of his family members were there. Like I said, some of the main actors in the movie were there and stuff. And they had like a DJ, had a DJ from the Warriors games, the guy that DJs that. And so it was a cool event. They fed everybody, getting popcorn, drinks, and veggie burgers and t-shirts and stuff. So it was really nice. It was kind of grassroots, just like Oakland kind of does. But it was interesting to see how when the first episode was kind of shown, everybody's like screaming and cheering and happy. And then it went to the next episode, and as it kept going, you could kind of see people, I don't know if they were just so, trying to digest what they saw before, but you could kind of tell, like, it's just like, okay, like this ride isn't for everybody. So you could kind of hear it in the audience by the response, because they showed them in the theater, like the episodes come up. So the episode comes on, and then you get the credits, and then Amazon, and the show comes on again. And so each time people would kind of cheer, and you could kind of hear the cheer wane off as the episodes went along. I don't know if because they figured, well, maybe we'll wait until the end to cheer, or it just got kind of weird for some folks. It got kind of weird for me too. Okay, so we're not gonna get into spoilers yet, but I will say I did enjoy it. But like you said, it's not for everybody. And I think it really depends on your expectations. And so the thing you said, real quick, so the thing you said about kind of concerned about the ending, what is your main concern about endings? Is it the fact that it has an ending but you don't like it, or is it like you get an ending but it leaves you kind of unclear or unfinished?
So let me say this. Let me frame this a little bit better. I think I personally like the concept of going into a movie feeling anxious about knowing that the talent who wrote or directed the film is going to give me something weird.
Okay.
So, and I think that formed with some of my first watching of a film with Quentin Tarantino when we were younger, was one of the first ones of the generation, me getting to an age where I can buy my own movie ticket.
Right.
And I felt weird about what he was going to give me. I knew he was going to give me something strange, and it wasn't going to be overly predictable hero's journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think my statement about that for this film was just like solely 100% based off what Boots Riley gave us with his film. And so that ending was like, it's not me judging the ending. It's just an anxious, like, man, I don't know about this ending. Like, I don't know what he gonna do to pull it out, but I feel confident it ain't gonna just be your typical hero's journey ending where it's all sold up nice. I feel like I was gonna walk away feeling still conflicted about the main content, which I think in his particular case is probably his aim, as a filmmaker, is someone that wants you to walk away feeling some kind of way. So I knew I was going to walk away feeling some kind of way. And I also knew that it was going to be kind of nerdy, something really put in there that was for the weirdo in you, that he wants to tap into the weirdo in you and be like, what if? Not spoiling this movie, but it's sort of like, but to spoil the other movie that was 5 years ago, but to say, what if he turns into a horse at the end, like that kind of thing. So, but yeah, man, for me, I'm down for all stories. I always feel like I get excited or feel some kind of way when I'm watching a narrative, like when I'm watching a film and I'm like, ooh, man, I just don't know if it's going to sew up real nice.
Right. Okay.
13-foot tall man.
Right. That's a premise for you.
I was scared. I don't want to get into spoiler, but there was other thing when I looked at the trailer and I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. This is going to be fun. So I just,
Well, for those who don't know or haven't seen the trailer or not for sure, I don't see how you could click on this without even knowing anything about it. But the synopsis for this movie is a coming-of-age joyride about Cootie. He's a 13-foot tall man who escapes and to experience the beauty and the contradictions of the real world. He forms friendships, he finds love, navigates awkward situations, and encounters his idol, the hero. This is directed by Boots Riley. It stars Jarrell Jerome, Olivia Washington, Brett Gray, Mike Epps from Friday fame, and all that kind of stuff. Very diverse cast, very well-known folks and folks like Walter Goggins. Okay, so I guess so your overall feelings of it, did you dig it, or how'd you feel overall?
Loved it. I give it a 8 out of 10.
Wow.
I think if this was just a movie that I saw like on Netflix or something like that, if it was just a movie stream, I would have watched it twice. I would have watched it again by now, even if it was a 2-hour joint, right?
Yeah.
I would have been like, ooh, let me go back, get Easter eggs, blah, 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 right?
Right.
I really would have enjoyed it and would have craved more. I would have been like, yo, give me a comic book in real life. Give me something more from it.
Yeah.
So, but in the form that it was in, I'm like, yo, I don't see why they would give me another 8 episodes or 10, you know what I'm saying? But I like the idea that door is open.
Okay. All right. And I dug it as well. I don't really give grades or anything, but I would say I would check it out again. I would say if you're over to Bruce Riley's kind of stuff, or stuff that's kind of like different, kind of sci-fi-y, kind of coming of age and things like that, I think it's a fun watch. But be prepared that it's going to be different. It's not going to necessarily go down easy. And I think that's the point of this, like you were kind of saying too. All right, so let's go into spoilers. And one question I want to ask, just because of what you said, when I initially saw the trailer, I thought this was a movie. So when I realized it was a TV show, I was kind of surprised. So do you think this would have been better as a movie versus a series?
All day. Yeah, I do. I definitely do.
Me too. And I think this, and we're going out of order, but I think that it kind of suffered in a way because of the episodes, and the way they were broken up, and it's kind of like disjointed. And I'm sure it could be like that because it could have been like the comic book panels or something like that. It could be broken up, but sometimes it trips me out, and I'm seeing this kind of more often than not. So it may be on purpose, but I'm seeing where they just kind of like, you're on the ride and nobody said where you're going or where you left off. You got a different person in the passenger seat, so you know some time has passed, but nobody's saying anything, and you just kind of got to hang on long enough to realize, hey, this is we skipped ahead sometime, or we just changed focus without any look back of, you know, the last situation that we left. And so I don't know if I'm a fan of that style of storytelling, or maybe I'm just not, you know, hip enough to keep up with it yet. But every time I've seen that kind of thing, I can't tell if it's style or somebody just are not sure about where to cut things off and how to break it up, and how to tell multiple stories layered in a way where you could not lose placement while you're saying multiple things going on at the same time.
Yeah. You know, when I looked at this, like, was the 7 episodes, I kind of looked at it like, if you were looking at this on a real, like, you were trying to make a real quick storyboard just for a pitch, this, I still look at all of the main points that they hit, even with the sub stories going on. This still is just a good movie. Like, and I think what happened was, especially like around episode 4 and 5, like where certain things happened, but they said, okay, all right, now I got to keep watching it, like after the death of a friend. But I realized that there was a handful of things that if this was a movie, each one of those episodes would have been cut down to like 15 minutes, right? Instead of 30 or whatever the run times were. So for example, we wouldn't have had, you realize like almost there's a sex scene, which is like awkwardly half of an episode.
Right. I was trying to figure out what was the reason of that. You know, it was very thorough, and it's just like, it was awkward. It was almost kind of, it was almost like, you almost felt wrong for watching it. And it's almost like, I know you're going to feel off about it. I'm going to let this kind of play out. I'm just keep taking it to the next level. You think it's over and the music starts back up. Well,
and it's like the awkward agreement. Like, I guess it's kind of thing like, oh, we got a TV show. So one, we got to make more time. And here's the thing. Y'all curious. So we're going to play into it. It's sort of like how when there was a scene, you know, when before the fight happens, and and the girls are like, we want to see it. So it's sort of like there's this curiosity, this sexual curiosity of, oh, this is a 13-foot man. People want to see. And so he spoke to that, and they kept going. Oh, she moves really fast. But you know, like, so I think it's the same thing that The Boys did with even though I know The Boys was a pre-existing comic or whatnot, but it's like The Boys has that episode where it's all orgasms. What's the one that DC has? They have that same thing. We're all interested, oddly and creepily enough, in our hero's sexual prowess. Shouldn't be, but it is part of the geek lexicon. It's what we do. And Boots was like, I'm giving it to you. And
he did.
and I think what's crazy is, and I call it old man syndrome on me. I ain't putting this on you. But part of me being older was like, can we get on with it?
I was too. It's like, you don't want to see no folks. You don't want to see that kind of mess, especially if it's not your choice of what you're watching.
Yeah.
It's being put on you. It's just kind of like, I don't want to see nobody kissing. I don't want no extra forms of affection in front of me. If it ain't me and I'm not in it, I don't necessarily, but you know what it kind of reminded me of? I don't know if you've seen it before, but this movie came out years ago and it's called Team America.
Yeah, I remember
these
that.
puppets, and they had this sex scene with the puppets, and it was just, they kind of doing everything. Now they wouldn't even get away with all that stuff if it was humans, but since they were puppets, they just kept pressing and kept pushing and kept pushing, and it was funny. It was awkward, and it's just like running way too long, and everybody in the room knew it, but they didn't care, and that was almost the point. And I was just like feeling like I felt like that again. I felt like I was in this situation again where it's just like, I'm just glad certain people wasn't sitting next to me while I had to sit there and watch that.
I think now, and the thing I like about his direction and his writing in this, and it's about the concept of the relationship, is that I don't know what it's like to live in Oakland, right? But I do know what it's like to live in the hood.
Right.
And he did a great job of showing the feeling of what it must be like to be different there.
Right.
Like different, but then even within there, like that relationship was just perfect. Like in the sense of these were two different people who found each other, and in the urban space that they created. Because I'm one that always believes that the actual location is a character in itself.
Yes, for sure.
And as a person who's been to Oakland, on business and actually took like a 2-day vacation there once, like I love the Bay Area, but I'm not from there. So I don't really know what it feels like to live there. But I feel like in his first film and in this, it gives you that door into it.
Yeah.
And it's been played out with New York and LA. We know what it's like there. But I love that gave a good feeling. And then that relationship all played in as well. So I wasn't mad at the relationship he had with him. When people first get together, that's all they do. Like when he got to house arrest and she was like, and it was just like, this is all, that's kind of what a beginning of a relationship is like when you're young. And it's, and
you love the bad breath. You don't care about none of it. Next thing you know, your eyes rolling too much, your lips smacking like he was having a problem with all those little things. It was funny that it was kind of touched on, and that probably was to counter the early with the relationship. So maybe that was just to make it seem that much crazier of how that relationship goes. And because really we're experiencing a lot of stuff with him for the first time with the main character Kuti. He's going through a lot now. He's older and everything, but he's been very secluded with his family, and his family keeps him under the roof, and for a good reason, and I just kind of think that, as fantastical as this whole thing is, it's just a big metaphor for like fear of the black boy kind of thing, fear from the parents and what the world's going to do to that black boy. That was almost touched on with the Spider-Verse movie. And then the whole thing of how outside is going to see you. You're this thing where you're this commodity in a way, and people want to exploit you in a way and use you for whatever, for good and for bad, and what they want to do and their intentions with you, and the whole, process of after they get done with you, they're going to throw you out kind of thing. And that was brought up by his dad. So all these little different concerns and the fears that all kind of tie in with that blackness and that black boy kind of thing. And for you, even with your kids, you feel like they're giants. You feel like because it was almost funny when they showed that woman, and we find out later on that as his aunties, hold this baby. The first thing I thought, and it was a baby that was huge, and she's like holding it like it's a horse or something almost. And it was funny because the first thing I thought is like, that baby couldn't have came out of no woman. Like it was funny that they would even show him as a baby in diapers. and a woman carrying him. Like, how are you supposed to take that? You supposed to take that as if that actually came out of somebody? So I thought it was funny. So I was just like, they could have skipped that. They could have made him like a toddler and been like, okay, he used to be tiny, and then he just got big like Clifford the Big Red Dog, but it was almost, no, he's a newborn baby, and that thing is huge. So where did he come from?
So, all right, here's my theory, and I want to say it now while it's on my mind, because while you were talking, 6 points came up, and I lost them. Okay. But here's the one I got. I got a theory about. I was going through this just like it was a comic book, and it was making me. This is what helped me enjoy the film. But it's one of the reasons why I didn't like it. Okay. One of the things I didn't like about it is because there was a plot hole-ish kind of thing going on that they didn't answer. Right. To me, I wanted a clear, definitive answer. Did this rich man facilitate everything from his birth all the way to the end as a means of, like, did the hero facilitate Kuti? Like, and the reason why I say this is because the uncle works in the lab. Yeah. So was it a thing of like, hey, I need to create a villain for myself, you know, like, and there were several statements made in I think it was like episode 6, it requires trust or whatever. So like, you know, we discovered that like he hires the assassin for himself, you know, like it all got me to thinking that like, that's what was going to be revealed, that, you know, even for the uncle and the aunt to just have this secretive, like, we know they're coming kind of thing. And it's like, well, how do you know? And then it was that concrete look to his space where he was living. Yeah. And then like when they got into like letting the people into the trap door, it was that concrete look. Yeah. And I was just like, that could just be what the set offered, you know, but in my mind, I kept wanting it to be a big reveal that it was all him.
Yeah, that's a very insightful thought with the hero being played by Walter Goggins. I think that's very possible. I think that even though he saw, you know, Kuti close up and saw his mentality, saw that he was really a man-child, he did not care. He needed his bad guy, regardless. Yeah. In spite of what he saw truth and ignored it because he needed him to be the scary black guy. Even when he was exploited and shown halfway butt naked on billboards because he was a model, kind of, you know, playing in the tropes and stereotypes and stuff, like he's been exploited by everybody. And even the hero wanted a piece of him to exploit him as the villain, even when it was in a situation. Before he even did anything, he was already trying to build a cage for him. Before he even did any crime, or he never did a crime, but he was in the fact that he's black and 13 feet tall, he knows he got to be a bad guy. So that kind of plays into what you're saying about, yeah, it's possible because he doesn't seem like, you know, quote unquote, the hero. He doesn't like, even the way his living is, it almost plays with the whole thing with the capitalism theme and all the other kind of stuff and privilege and all this other kind of stuff and money and power and all this, where he is so rich and powerful that things come to him. Like he doesn't even have to go to a building. He doesn't have to go into the office. He don't have to go into the store. It's all layers and it just, the building moves for him. He doesn't have to walk any stairs.
Yeah, I wasn't lost on that factor. That he has to do is stand in the center.
All he got to stand there. And the world moves to him, not the other way around. The world comes to him. And so, and you got this kid that's locked up for his own safety, you know, and he never goes anywhere. But then also when you're talking about his aunt and uncle, which is very interesting, it kind of had me, and I couldn't tell at first how big the problem was, because you've seen that, you know, they were kind of storing away and making weapons and all this other kind of stuff, and they're preparing for something, right? And they're talking like, you know, I thought it was going to be like almost like an alien invasion, right? Yeah. But then you saw it was just him dealing with the outside. So I was like, are they talking about both things, or is one a metaphor for the other? Because the way they were talking, and when it only was about him just being out there with society, the way they were talking, like I knew this day would come, you would have thought the way the weapons look and the way they was concerned that they or some aliens going to come and he was going to be a protector for the aliens. So it was funny how the expectation kind of played, but not to say that that still may come later on, especially when you kind of see that Kuti is not exactly what you think he is, because he has this, you know, issue of Acme that's on his side that they never
Right.
explained what that was, and it just kind of become a bigger and bigger problem as the episodes go along. I thought it was kind of interesting that they touched on things like the cult that kind of saw him. Like, you're going to have the people who's going to want to demonize him, and then you're going to have the side that's going to want to worship him because they don't know, you know, he's a devil for some, he's an angel and the second coming for others. And even with folks feeling of him possibly being the second coming, they still want their pound of flesh. They still want to manipulate and control and own. You know, that's almost like somebody owning you because they hate you, want to put you in jail, and the other person, you know, want to own you by loving you and keeping you from. Everybody wants him. Everybody wants to own him, regardless of the intentions. Yeah. Everybody's trying to hold him, be it mother's, father's love, auntie, uncle's love, society. Everybody wants him for their own. He does not have himself for himself. Very interesting. Everybody's intentions for him.
You know, that last episode was named A Metaphor for What? And it goes perfect into what you were just saying, because it's so many, this movie is laced with so many metaphors, and it's just like you can walk away and say that. Along those lines, when you were talking about, one of the things I thought about throughout the movie was like, common sense to me was like, oh, these clothes itch because they don't belong on. You know, like the burgers don't belong in his system. That's why he didn't like them. You know, like he waited, anticipated to get what others had, what was on the other side. And when he got it, it was something that wasn't good for his system.
Right.
And I think it goes back to the same narrative that me and you, the last time we got together and did a show, talked about. And we keep talking about even today, is that as a parent, you do your best to keep your child in this space of purity as close as you can. And the best result is that you end up with somewhat like a cootie where there's imagination.
Right.
I don't know Boots Riley and his upbringing and whatnot, but you take a man with that much imagination, and you can tell something, he was cultivated in a situation where health and other things must have been priority, because you can still see he has imagination. You can still see that there's hope there. And I think sometimes when you don't put the designer clothes on your kids, when you don't put the fast food in their bodies, they're not getting what everyone else is getting. Your child may be the geek, may be the one that stands out a little bit, but your child's gonna have more imagination. And if you try to insert those things into their life later, that they end up being allergic to it to some extent. It's gonna have a weird rub. And, you know, I look at the guy, there's so many people in our community. And one of my favorite comedians, Ali Sadiq, talks about this a lot, about how there's so many people in your community that's the perfect influence for you, that's always trying to help you.
Right.
But we be looking for entertainers and agents and all these other people to come in and tell us what's better so that we can replicate what the others are doing. But the truth of the matter is, it's the local people that you should be looking to.
Right.
Because it's always someone there trying to put you on game, keep you in a positive position, whether it's mom, dad, or the coach or whoever. And in this particular case, it seems like he found new direction on how to, you know, he found positive direction on how to eat through his girlfriend. You know, like he found all the knowledge that he needed to know what the past was, even though it was hurting him to get those past stories of how they treated giants. But once again, a metaphor giant, but like you said earlier, sometimes you look at him and it's just like, this is just what it's like to be a Black person. Specifically for us, we identify as this is exactly what it's like to be a Black man in society. You're always, whether it's through your family's expectations, whatever it is, you're always being taught or told or poked and prodded in which direction you need to go.
Right.
And it's hard to figure out who your authentic voice.
Right. Especially with a running thing for this show, I've noticed too, is the whole thing with conditioning, you know, and he grew up on, you know, TV, comic books, and, you know, the mindset of his parents, you know. And so it was very interesting, like how, you know, even from just comic books, just showing who the hero is and how the contradiction of even the namesake of the comic book that he was reading by this character named the hero, how he wasn't even that. And so he's constantly fighting his conditioning, which is us in general, just as a people, as a society. And he goes in tiers of, depending on what you are and how you grew up, is these boxes that we are just so diehard to ride along for. And it's not even our vehicle, but we're riding for it. Even if it's in the wrong direction, it's all we know. It's the jacket that we put on. And even though we know it doesn't fit, it doesn't match, we are conditioned where we don't even think to take it off. We just think we are the jacket instead of the jacket being something that is removable. And the most important part is optional. But if you don't know that, it's not, it's you. And so we're seeing him fighting that, even when I'm not gonna say it the way she said it, but they were getting into it with his woman, Flora, and he, kind of talking dirty to her. And she's like, hey, why you say that to me? And he was like, oh, my boy said, women like to hear that. And she said, well, I'm messing with you. I ain't messing with him. I was like, well said. And I'm glad that she was, kind enough to say that, because sometimes people ain't going to explain stuff to you. They'll just leave the room and be like, you don't know what happened. So I thought it was beautiful, because that's a life lesson that he could apply to anything.
It is.
Like she's saying, unlearn. She's saying the same things the parents are saying. This is what that is for real.
Well, I can't speak for you, but the way you said that is the way I would have said it, because that has happened to me. I have done that. I've made that same exact mistake of saying and acting and thinking I should say this in the wrong moment. And I did not have people to correct me. They just was like, yeah, I ain't messing with you no more. Right. And I think that was one of the things that was sad about the death of his friend, because he just kind of laughed, like Cootie just laughed along and said, yeah, I like this character, but I didn't get the feel that he actually did.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even real. And his friend goes out his way to go get this thing, so that he can have a relational, like insight with like something that they can share. Right. He's going to do this to bond, and he ends up ultimately losing his life. And I do know that the bigger conversation around healthcare was a big part of his death. Mm-hmm. But that other part of like, how often do things happen with people, and the truth of the matter is he didn't even have to be on that journey, but there was like a social pressure there on both parts.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Yeah, I honestly didn't think he got because the show is almost like a weird South Park Simpsons kind of hybrid. It's kind of weird kind of cartoon. And it's funny because there's a lot of insight with that, but Cootie didn't take it as that, and the guy watching it didn't take it as that either. So I think the friend was laughing because he didn't get it, and I think that Cootie was doing it to be accepted, and then we're watching it like, this is interesting. So it's like these three different takes on the same thing, and so okay, so the whole thing with his friend passing. Okay, I thought it was interesting the way the whole thing happened. It was a little surreal the way the thing happened, and it's almost, when it happened, I was almost like, did I miss something? Because it was just kind of awkward the way it happened. And he was riding his bike and he's defying gravity and he lands and he ends up hurting himself. And then it came to a situation where he needed help, had to go to the hospital, and the hospital wasn't quick enough for helping. And so to me, it almost touches on an issue I have with the show in a way. I won't say necessarily an issue, but something that kind of sticks out that I noticed a couple of times with this is that I think there's kind of an issue with getting things to where it needs to be in a nice flow. I think that certain things needs to happen, and they're kind of working backwards on making it happen. So they're going to patch a bridge to make it connect versus have a fortified bridge to get the character where it needs to go. Like, it was a roundabout way so the hospital could get brought up. Like, he might have had this idea to have, because it is a dope concept of this 13-foot guy on the back of a convertible in Oakland, and they're doing donuts at the sideshow. Right? Now that's dope, the sideshow.
In Oakland, California, every Saturday night, brothers be riding. Straight lace Zenos, drop tops, buckets, high performance. We really don't be tripping, you know what I'm saying?
That's synonymous with Oakland. It's the culture, right? I've been seeing sideshows since I was 16 and driving, hanging out in Oakland near Eastmont Mall. So that's the thing. And so it's like that scene needs to happen. And it's almost like they didn't know what else to do there. They just needed to have that scene, regardless of all the other stuff, like the stuff that happened before and after. It was just like they keep driving around and what, and just I didn't, nobody's like looking or stopping or being like, hey, that's weird. It was just like, but they needed that scene in there, and so I felt like a few things in there that I felt like they just needed to be there because they needed to be there, and just like it just needed a way for it to happen, and the way it happened was not the strongest to me, but it's just like, okay, well, we got to this place that we needed to be at point B right now, so this is how we got there.
One of the things that I needed more understanding, or maybe I just turned away, and you can correct me on this because I could have just turned away. I only watched all the episodes one time. I didn't watch this. I don't remember or know how or why the community of people ended up little.
No, it just came up.
I was like, did I miss something?
No, like I said, you in the car, you like, that's not the driver I got in the car with. Like, what is this? And it's not even said anything, Now we recognize that character because he came up before talking mess.
Wasn't he? I thought he was the guy he got into the fight with that was drunk.
Yes. He bumped into earlier. Yes.
Yeah.
And so it was just like, oh, that's the same guy. And he just kind of, so there's something bigger going on. It's a lot of stuff going on that I think is not going to be touched on until later. But I thought that considering we didn't have necessarily a complete story on our main protagonist, it's almost like, do we have time to, it was just so much going on. It was a lot. We got mutants there. That chick, she's a mutant. Flora, she got this speed thing, and she explains it because it goes a long time for us before we know what's going on. We just see her blurring around and nobody's blinking or saying anything about it.
Yeah, I just thought it was artistic and expression initially.
Right, but no, she's a mutant technically, and she seems to be unbothered. As far as she has a job at a burger spot. She's not being experimented on or anything.
It feels like no one knew. They just exposed us to it. It felt like it was something that like they just showed us, hey, this is what's really happening, but she's moving so rapidly. It just felt like it was just something they showed us and no one else knew it.
So you don't think they was getting their orders really fast? You don't think she's going through that line hella fast, serving folks and all that?
I think it goes to, and not to keep metaphor now, but it goes to the idea that it's like fast food is fast. You know what I'm saying? So it's sort of like, I didn't really, I thought it was artistic expression. And then when they gave the backstory, I was like, okay, I get it. But, it was so many different, there's a lot going on in the film at one time. So I never thought about it. And that's interesting because if there's a hero who's just openly accepted, and then no one really did come for Cootie, like to bring him to a lab or something, then the concept that people walk the earth with powers, the factor that the lead protester, his friend, I can't think of the character's name right now, the factor
Jones.
that Jones, the factor that Jones has this power.
Yeah.
And it's
insight.
And it's a known thing because even the girlfriend was like, don't, it's like, you can't do that. Like, it wasn't a hidden factor.
Right.
And so, it could have been. The power outage thing was kind of explained, but I like the usage of it a little bit. Like I liked how like after these big events, then the power would go out.
Right.
It was almost, it wasn't comedic, but it reminded me of like on Don't Be a Menace when they kept saying message. Like I feel like every time the power went out, it was like, did y'all just you get it? It was just a step further into like, like watching Cootie, like watching this story, like watching him evolve as he steps out of the shadows. It kept being these moments of like, it just continued to be these moments of like, it's kind of awkward.
Yeah.
So many different pieces, as we are talking about it, so many different pieces I think about. Like, I feel like the neighbor having that house way up there. What was that about?
Right.
It was a different world. It was not, it was Oakland 627. You know what I'm saying? It was not our world at all. Yeah,
it was a trip, and like I said, nobody's blinking about anything. Like I said, even when the guy woke up small, it was like nobody's blinking. It's like, oh, okay, let me just get a receipt, and that's gonna be my new toga because I have no clothes that's gonna fit me. And we got families talking about, oh, I think we got some dog clothes over here. Let's see if we can get you some clothes. So we got grown black folks wearing dog clothes and trying to have a new society, and you know, and the guy is just like, instead of being stuck crying in the corner, he's fixing cars. He's still a mechanic, you know, under cars, fixing cars and stuff. So it's a trip. I like the attention to detail with things like Cootie's clothes being a whole bunch of regular sized clothes sewn together to fit him. You know, I thought that was kind of creative, and his shoes are patched together with a whole bunch of other kind of shoes and stuff. And who would possibly be able to do that for him and stuff? It was just, like I said, it just kind of reminded me of those 90s movies, those little, you know, strange kind of, you know, like Be Kind, Rewind, like those kind of movies where just these quirky neighborhoods and quirky neighbors, and you just kind of go with the flow. You know, you don't question and look too hard or stick on anything too long, and you know. So what do you think about Walter Goggins' character, the hero? What you think of him?
I think it was good, man. I think it was very familiar for some reason. I know, you know, he seems very villain. Like I felt like I've seen him as a villain before for some reason, and I don't think I have I?
He plays bad guys all the time. Walter
Does he?
Goggins,
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, like, yeah, I mean, he was the perfect pick for it. But as far as the character goes, perfect metaphor for like when people say the man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's it. Like the man being able to label himself hero, create his own propaganda to back it up with the comic, to just not even see himself until you know Jones really kind of reveals this space, to which I think is very, and I know he announced this film in 2020 or announced the project in 2020, but it's how I feel about what I've seen in the aftermath of 2020 and 20, you know, like of a lot of people seeing the reality of how systematic racism, things are real. And I saw a lot of white men just walk away, like not do anything to change or to, you know, just realize and then not know how to grip with it. And it's sort of like a certain level of fragility kind of kicks in.
Yeah.
And it's like, but because they really brought the hype. They really believed the hype. Yeah. It's so like, I loved it. Like when the mother interacted with them and kind of was bringing them back to the reality of like, we're rich. What are you doing? You know, like kind of thing. And I think that yeah, like it covered, the character was well-rounded in that way. And the concept of having I keep calling him old boy from Insecure. I know his guy name was it Samson I can't think of his name, but to have someone do predates was just like, that's
yeah, that relationship was kind of weird. Yeah, like I say, it had so much. This had so much going on. Like people just, Elijah Wood came up and they're trying to figure out better ways to give, you know, prisoners poison and making it more humane by sticking a needle in at 20 degrees instead of 60, or it's just like, what? But it's touching on so much. It's like he's throwing everything in the kitchen sink in here, and he's kind of talking. So it's either somebody's popping up and doing it, or it's a cutscene to something, or it's putting the weird cartoon, or it's during the news when the news is talking and there's a blurb brought up during the news. He uses everything, so you can't take anything for granted. You can't take a commercial on the screen. You can't take somebody walking in the background for granted, because he uses everything. Anything is potential information to feed you into the story, because you're in this whole thing, like the whole thing with the Kaiser type kind of, you know, hospital system and all this kind of stuff. And the hero is almost like a, you know, metaphor for like cops or just the man or the system and stuff like that. And it's almost folded in on this black boy coming of age story. And it's just like all these things. So even when we're introduced to we think the main thing is going to be Cootie and his situation, this whole world is, you know, collapsing around him. It's like the, you know, almost like with never ending story, the nothing, like you don't know that it's coming for you, but it's out there. You just living your best life, but don't think that it's not on its way to get you. And it kind of comes to, you know, slowly but surely comes to get him. But I will say with the hero, when he got enlightened by Jones about capitalism and his part that he plays in it and stuff, I thought it was very powerful. And like I said, once again, he's on autopilot, just like Cootie's on autopilot, and everybody's just playing what they think they should be. instead of understanding what they truly are and the place that they put in it. Because it wasn't like he just like, she showed him that and he looked at her and looked at her like, no crap. Like, duh. He could have said something like that. But he actually looked kind of like shooken, like he didn't know he was a cog too. You know, he thought he was justice. He thought he was, you know, managing things the right way. And so I thought it was very interesting that he almost had to step off. Like, he didn't apologize or anything. His I won't even say acceptance, but him acknowledging that he heard what was said was him just to walk away, because it was almost too much for him to even digest at the point. It's like, I gotta take this with me, and I'll hit you back later. Almost the way I felt when I saw this show. What do you think about it? I can't say right now. Let me walk away from this for a minute and let me chew on it, because it's still stuck in my throat. It haven't went down yet. I can't tell you how I'm going to digest this quite yet. But yeah, as full as this was, there's a lot of spaces left unfilled, for sure, on purpose. Which, you know, I guess depending on what kind of storytelling you like, you either appreciate that or you don't. And it was funny, another thing that kind of popped up that I was surprised, didn't even know where it came from. It's like, I remember when he first acknowledged, like I said, the little acne that he had on his side. And it just kind of kept getting worse. And I'm thinking, like, did I miss a scene where somebody threw some acid on him? Or did this happen? It's just like, it just was happening. And then, you know, when you kind of get to the end, you see, like, you know, this green stuff underneath and something swimming around. I'm like, is he an alien? Is it another universe inside of him? Is this a fake skin? Is he shedding to become something bigger, or something different? And like I said, and if so, then that would kind of explain why it almost looked like his family was preparing for an alien invasion and not just society.
Yeah.
So
it feels like it has to be. It has to be, right? Like, yeah. I feel like that's the point that I was getting at, where it's like, if it's a film,
yeah,
we would have seen an ending different. I think we would have had to. The show makes us say, oh, they've given us reason to say that if they ended it now, it was a great experience.
Yeah.
If they come back, I'm all in. You know what I'm saying? It was like, remember Raising Dion?
Yeah.
First season, it was good if it comes back. And then the second season, it comes back and it's like, yeah, it shouldn't have came back. You know, like, I mean, it had its moments, but you get what I'm saying. Like, and I think that's what this would be.
Yeah.
They run the risk of, if they come back, it better be something that's going to be tied in, and the writing has to be. Now, I think when I was looking up, I got off of the page now, but when I was looking it up, I want to say Boots Riley he didn't write every single episode. So I'm going to say there was 2 other writers who shared 3 other episodes with him.
That's possible, because for the majority of it, he did write, but he wrote some other names in there within there.
Yeah. So he wrote the whole thing, but, you know, other people came in and put their, you know, which was good, because sometimes stuff, you know, one writer gets too close and it might get a little bit too weird.
Yeah.
But man, I think overall, I was really, really looking at it, and I think one of my best standouts from this was, one, I really was fascinated with the young lady from the film, Olivia Washington.
Okay.
I thought that she stood out as someone that I want to see more. Mainly because I just felt like there was some realness to the character that I think she had to have, you know, like, her as an actress, she must have brought, you know, like, being an actor, she had to do it. I like seeing Mike Epps be Mike Epps, but it wasn't overkill. He was just himself. That weird backstory is one that I was like, yo, if they was to do another season, please take me back to how he goes from being a musician to janitor. You know what I'm saying? Like, tell me what the backstory is there. I want to know more about how, you know, the aunt or, you know, mother figure is such a revolutionary who's ready to just anarchist, ready to burn everything down. Like, these characters can be developed and played out so much, you know, further. What was his friend? Was it Felix was his name?
Yeah, Felix. Yeah.
You feel like at certain points, Felix could become an enemy.
Yeah, you can see some kind of tension and blame, which I thought seemed like they kind of squared it, but it was almost weird that it was even judgment because of it. Because it's almost kind of like, if I would waste my time with you, I could have saved my boy. You know, it was almost kind of like one of those kind of things. Like, you know, so I thought,
which is how grief goes, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Because but yeah, it's a lot that could be, because there's so many backstories that could be told in a new season.
Yeah.
Even if the plot isn't progressing further, there's so much that they could still tell us about these characters. So, you know, I'm pro. If this thing becomes if they put out a comic, a graphic novel, something extra adjacent to this universe that they've introduced us to, I will invest as usual. For me, it's something about that kid, and I know he's a grown man, but something about that kid, Darrell Jerome, man, you know, he was in that movie with the Ava DuVernay joint about the kids up in New York.
Yeah, I couldn't bring myself to watch it. I heard it was a brilliant. I couldn't do it.
So you were blessed in the sense of, like, this kid has to dig out of that role.
Okay.
He did such a powerful job in that role that it really it haunts you.
Wow.
So he's starting to come out of it. I've seen him in a couple other things, and I was like, oh, that's dude from the Central Park movie. But this was the first time I was like, it was almost as though his face took this horrible beginning of you seeing his face on this one character, and this movie helped liberate him as an actor for me.
Oh, wow.
Outside of that character. It was weird. It's weird to say because the two worlds aren't, because that's a movie depicting reality.
Yeah.
But on the same token, it did something good, because that movie, the Central Park movie, did have a very haunting, very, very, I mean, I would say it's right up there with Fruitville, like, as far as like what it does to you inside when you watch it.
And I figured that, and that's why I kind of avoided it. I was like, I couldn't take too many more shots like that. At least not just being in the right frame of mind. It's a lot. Like I said, I enjoyed the show. I think that what makes it hard is that the cool thing is this person who's very creative got a chance to play and have fun and express all these different things. The problem is the artist doesn't really know the speed or the actual speed they should be moving in, because they don't know how much road they have left. You don't know if this is going to be so weird that they might not get another season. So do I throw everything in now or set stuff up? What if you don't get another season? What if you know you're going to get a couple seasons so you can let everything breathe? So it's always kind of weird. And it's just like, and since there's no real guarantees on who's going to get what or how long stuff is going to go, it makes it very hard, I believe, for writers and directors to do these shows with not, like I said, not knowing how much road they have left. And so it's just, I think if they knew, like, hey, you have 3 seasons guaranteed, it'd have been set up a lot differently than it was. And like I said, and if it say it's too weird, nobody wants another season, even though they did land part of it, it's kind of like, that's a lot of extra stuff in there that's going to be like more questions than answers. But you know, I'm not trying to be negative, but I'm saying I see this for a lot of different shows, and it's just interesting to see how this thing is kind of like handled, because Into the Spider-Verse kind of went through the same thing as well, but we know there's a part 2 that's coming, and so they can do that. But when, like I said, when it comes to a show like this, that's like, it's gonna be interesting to see what people think of it. I enjoyed it, and I just like interesting rides, but it's gonna be interesting to see if it gets picked up again. I hope that it does. Because it has a lot that it put out with almost a promise of some more answers or more insight on what's been set up. So we'll see. But I know it's hard for people doing shows like this because they don't know. It's like you want people to be intrigued and you want them to yearn for more, but you don't know if you're going to be able to give it to them. And so how much do you give them? How much of a sample do you give them? How much talking up do you give it? You know, are you making false promises? So we'll see.
Good stuff.
I will say that this conversation went pretty well, considering this was a lot. This is a lot viewed at one time, and we just kind of like, So it was.
Yeah, this is a first reaction. It'd be, you know, here's the thing. I definitely know that we're going to think about this when we listen back.
Yeah.
And we're going to be like, oh, we forgot to talk about, and it'll be something really, really big, like
a
whole plot line or something, because there was that much going on.
Yeah.
But man, we'll watch it again.
Yeah. Or we could just do a thing where we could pick a favorite episode and kind of dig in. You pick one, I pick one, or whatever. What really struck us in the episode, and
Hey, it's your world, man. Like I told you, I'll get ready. I'll get ready, so I ain't gotta be ready.
That's right. Well,
I said that backwards, but y'all get the point. Y'all heard the expression.
You heard what he meant.
Yeah.
You heard what he meant.
But yeah, man, good stuff.
Let's see. Do you have anything you want to end with? Anything you're doing? Anything you want to say about the show? Anything you hope to see in the future, or anything you're looking out for coming up soon?
It's nothing for me right now, man. I got stuff, but nothing right now that I can talk about. But I would definitely say that Black creatives doing their thing has to be supported.
Yes.
If you the type of cat that's like, it's too weird, blah, 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 put it on while you go to sleep. If you the type of person that want to watch something while you sleep, like they need the TV on, go to sleep to it. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. But like, talk about it, promote it, let people know it's out, because this is a Black creative that I want to see get more projects greenlit. He's a person that comes from a different world. He's doing what he want to do at an age where he didn't, whereas, like he could have just stuck in the lane he was in.
That is a great point. And it seems like, okay, not that we have all the representation all the time, and not that we haven't been, making movies and shows and stuff for years, but people like Boots, people like Jordan Peele, people like from Atlanta,
Donald Glover and
Donald Glover. Yeah, like just them three are showing us on directions we haven't tapped in yet. You know what I mean? We think we done seen it all. We think we've been around, been doing it all. They're just showing that there's still some patches of land out there that have not been tilled or have not been touched or have not been cultivated. And so even if it's not your thing, just the fact that you thought it was no space left with nothing else to say, all the perspectives have been shown, that is not true. There are so many spaces out there that has not been touched, but it only can be touched if you're willing to give your truth. If you don't give you, then, there's plenty of space for you. There's not plenty of space for the slave narrative. There's no space for the thug. There's no space for the growing up in the ghetto. There's no space of, the ignorance and stuff. Like, it's full of that. It's full of those weeds in the garden. But there are spaces for flowers, for different types of flowers. There's always space for that. So even when you see that yard full of all those weeds and you think there's no space for a flower to shine, there is. And there are evidence of that. And so we just need more of that. More of that.
I can't say nothing else after that, man. That's a wrap for me.
Man, I appreciate you.
All right, man.
Thank you so much.
All right, appreciate you.
So that was Jay and Drew in our account of and discussion of I'm a Virgo.
Yes.
All right. Until next time. Peace.
Peace.
Thanks for listening, and please like and subscribe. Be sure to check out past and future episodes of this show, along with my other shows entitled The Movie Bench Quarterbacking Podcast and The Jay and Podcast, available now on all streaming platforms. Until next time, peace.